Buddy Adam, and you are checking out Podcasting Business School. This is the show where I teach podcasters how to love their show like a hobby and build it like a business. This is a podcast audit session, and today we are auditing the Finding Self with Jake podcast, hosted by Jake Sudnick, and Jake is here live in real life with me, virtually, I guess, not in real life, and we are going to dive right on in. Jake, how's it going, man?
Doing awesome. Excited to be here.
Okay. So with these podcast audits, we tend to focus on three different areas. Obviously, download growth is important. Audience engagement is important. Monetization. Which one of those three lanes do you want to kick things off with today? What would be most helpful?
Ooh, we got to talk growth right away. That's where I'm not sure where to start. It's all brand new to me, and I don't know. Right now, I'm kind of hovering in the same spot, and I have been since I've been consistent, which has been about 3 months, but haven't seen really audience growth.
Okay. And that's typical. Like we all kind of launch a show and we get it out to our immediate sphere of influence, people that we know on social media. If we have an email list, friends, family, and then it's like we bump our head against that wall and go, oh, now what? Now, how do I find more people to listen to my show?
Yes.
So can you describe your ideal listener of who you're trying to impact with the show? And then let's dive into some ideas on how to find those people.
This is probably part of the problem right off the rip, because I feel like my ideal listener is already too broad of a person that I'm looking for. My show, my idea was to target people that are dealing with burnout specifically around their job, and how we can help not have burnout around your job by developing, whether it's more of a sense of self, or maybe you need to be in a different lane. So I don't know if that's overly broad of a person that I'm trying to broadcast to.
No, like I think honestly, like once you described it to me, I'm like, okay, now I know what the show's about. So finding the right people, like the Finding Self with Jake podcast, I wasn't sure what that was about. When I read that title, I mean, I could guess, but when you talk about not being burned out from work, I think burnout, like that's a really key term, or work burnout, or surviving work burnout, or the reversing work burnout podcast, or something like that, or adding a tagline, a subtitle with some of that language in there. That's going to help a ton, because just low hanging fruit SEO, the title, the description of the show, and then the episode titles. I think that word workplace burnout, entrepreneurial burnout, anything like that is going to be really, really good for finding the right people. So is that jiving so far?
Totally. And I was I don't know, that seems so straightforward and so easy when you say it out loud, and I don't know how I've missed it, because I feel like I couldn't pick what I wanted that to be. So that helps.
Okay. And I mean, that's the key word that I think if we can invoke an emotion, and the people that are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, they're searching for certain things, and all of a sudden they read a title and they feel it and they go, ooh, that's what I'm experiencing. I'm experiencing burnout, the workplace burnout, or whatever, whatever that is, whatever that term is, and they see it. It's the exact right fishing lure for the type of fish that we're trying to catch here. Like, if you're trying to catch a catfish, I don't know how experienced of a fisherman you are, Jake, but if you're trying to catch a catfish, you usually don't fish off the top of the water. Those types of lures are not going to catch catfish. You got to fish off the bottom. So we have to name the show or define the show with the right type of lure that catches that right type of ideal listener. So I think that's going to help quite a bit. So, I mean, how do you feel about changing the name of the show? Some people are like, this is my baby, I'm not touching it. Or are you open to those sorts of ideas?
I'm not bound to it by any means. I've actually been hesitant to put up my website until I did this show, because I wanted to talk to you first and get ideas, because I'm like, I want to publish it, but I want to make sure I'm putting the right thing out and not changing everything after.
Okay. Well, and rebranding a little bit, especially early on, like you're just getting going, like this is not going to be a major issue. Like if you've got hundreds of thousands of downloads and people are subscribing and then rebranding, I mean, even then I've rebranded every single show I've ever put out. So it's just kind of part of the process. You earn your stripes, with, in the podcasting space, but you launch. Like that's the key thing that so many people get in their head, and they're like, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, all those things. They're like, oh, I've got to perfect this and that and that, and they never launch. It's just a show that it's inside their head forever. So you escape that podcrastination phase. You're out there, you have a show, and now we make little minor tweaks. It's that ready, fire, aim instead of ready, aim, fire. So you're not stuck in aim, 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 aim. You fired, and now we aim and adjust and fine tune for your audience. So when you talk burnout, can we niche down into like entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, 9 to 5 people that work for other people? Do you feel like you have a specific person that we could focus on out of those categories?
I think that the group that lends itself to what I know best, I work in real estate as like my job. So I feel like that solopreneur, entrepreneur person is probably more of my focal point than someone in a typical 9 to 5. I haven't done that in years, so I might not relate as well there.
Now I'm getting some ideas, because it depends how far you want to niche down. But I really think I would strongly consider, if it was my show, this is what I would do. I'm building up the mojo here, Jake.
Sure.
I would call it like something about I would have the word real estate professional in there, and burnout, avoiding real estate professional, not burning out as a real estate professional, avoiding real estate pro burnout, something along those lines, or solopreneur, entrepreneur. Those are all great. Or maybe even putting some of those terms together, like the real estate solopreneur show or something like that. And then the whole theme is helping you survive, thrive, and never burn out as a real estate professional or as a real estate solopreneur. Like, I like all of that language a lot. So let's make a note of that. How to survive, thrive, and never burn out as a real estate pro. Like that's who you want to speak to. That's who you can most help. That's whose shoes you're currently walking in. How's that hitting you so far?
I love that. So my weird hang up with this is I've been a little caught on like, okay, do I niche down too much, and then I've isolated myself where I'm not getting to everybody that I want to, and maybe I have to do that first to get to a bigger audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think my buddy James Bryant has a show called Engineer Your Success. All right, this is a great example. Okay. His show, anybody could listen to, and they should. Shout out to Dr. James. And they'll get something. It's very motivational. It's about, having work-life balance. So it's a little bit of a similar vibe, but he markets it to engineers because he is an engineer. That's why it's called Engineering Your Success. So he's having engineers come on and talk about how they handle work-life balance and all that. But down the road, he's going to appeal to a much larger audience of anybody that's looking for work-life balance. But he can niche down, be in that niche, be an expert in that space, monetize in that space. Just imagine being invited. I mean, how many realtors are there? How many real estate conferences and conventions and virtual summits need speakers? And you focus on burnout, and like you're the burnout guy, the burnout survival coach, the burnout avoidance coach, the BAC in the real estate space. You're a certified BAC burnout avoidance coach, man. Like that, it just we can make up as many credentials as we want at this point. But I like that a lot because you'll stand out. You aren't let me show you how to make $1 billion in real estate. It's like, let me show you how to not hate your career and survive, thrive, and grow the career that you really deserve to have. Like, that's where I see you operating. And then your episodes serve that. I mean, you're in the space, but every realtor I know is crazy about podcasts. They love podcasts. Like, they're always driving around to showings and everything and doing all this. Like, they're always got stuff in their ears. Mm-hmm. It's very top of mind right now because we are attempting to buy a house. We just sold our house and now we're trying to buy a house, and it's insane. But I really like this because I feel like, there are millions of real estate professionals out there. So I think we're good on downloads. If we can just find real estate professionals, we're going to be good. that could lead, and the more niche down you are, that could lead to sponsorships. In my opinion, like you can get sponsors a little more easily from mortgage lenders, title companies, any of the people that you like to use, or brands, whatever. I think that it'll be easier to monetize with sponsors earlier than it would be to just kind of like a self-help podcast, because those people want to see minimum 20,000 downloads a month before they'll even talk to you. But
Yeah.
if you are niche down and you're speaking to the exact specific person that these companies want to talk to, they'll start to talk to you a little bit, especially if they do major business like title companies and things like that. If you're getting 500 downloads an episode, they're like, that's 500 realtors listening in. Like, I want to be in front of those people. So yeah, how's
Okay.
all that hitting you? I just brain dumped a whole bunch of ideas on you, man.
No, I love that. And I think that it's already so many, there's already a lot of connections I have within the industry that I haven't really utilized. So I think that that kind of leads into that even further. So it makes all the sense naturally to go that route.
Okay, so let's talk about your content then.
Yeah, please.
It's going to be that focused on that pinpoint niche of the real estate pro burnout. So I think you definitely need to do some solo episodes that are just you teaching. Like, I want some expert positioning, especially like if you really want to be a speaker, a paid speaker on this topic, which I think would be low hanging fruit, very easy. Like, I really think you position yourself as the burnout guy in this space. Word's going to catch. Everybody needs unique speaking, perspectives at conferences, not the same old, same old. I think you're going to get booked to speak, and that's going to be great. And that's going to pull more listeners into your show. That levels up our sponsorship opportunities. So they kind of feed each other. So I want to establish that expert positioning. We need to do solo episodes, not just interviews, because if you only do interviews, the other people, the expert, you're the person interviewing the expert. I want you to get booked, not them. I mean, it's okay if they get booked too, but I want you to get booked as a speaker. Or if you want
Makes
to write a
sense.
book on this, if you want to have a course, a conference, coaching, consulting, like you could have a real estate, burnout survival boot camp, and it's an online workshop, or it's a virtual summit. Like, all these things, these are easy ideas, man.
Yeah, definitely.
But we need solo episodes. Those are going to be very important. I would say at least every other week, every other episode needs to be a solo or a coaching consulting style episode. So maybe you have some real estate pros on that are more looking for advice, not necessarily as a guest, but a younger real estate professional, and they're like, I really want to build this thing up, but I don't want my life to suck. How can I do this? And you have a little process. You take them through, like what we're doing here today with the podcast audit. What is your version of what we're doing here today? All right, where you get to, obviously, this is where I get my expert position. People listen to these every Friday, and it kind of positions me when they're ready to dive in for coaching or whatever.
Okay.
And then, of course, I think having successful real estate professionals on, and you dive into their story of balance. Like, how are you, what's going well? And you even ask them what's not going so well. Like, if you could change one thing right now with your work-life balance, how would you adjust things? Obviously, the money is good, the market's crazy, but if you're working 90 hours a week and you never see your family, that's not what we want. Or maybe you find people that are really, they're thriving in the space, and they do have that balance, and you bring them on to talk about how they did that. So I think those three lanes, that's where I would be. In my mind, if it was my show, what I would do is 1 week would be a solo or a coaching style episode. So that would be you with expert positioning. The next week, bring on a successful real estate entrepreneur and have them tell their story, and just go back and forth, back and forth. So for a year of content, we look at 52 weeks. You need 26 real estate professionals to talk to that are out there crushing it. You will have zero problem finding that. And then you need 26 topics you can talk about, or 26 people to do a coaching style episode, or 13 and 13. Like, these numbers are doable. They should not feel intimidating at all. Like, this is all, and for everybody that's listening in, this is like the switch that we have to flip by letting go of the fear of the niche and going, well, heck, like instead of going after everybody and all things, who do we really want to talk to? And every one of these ideas just went machine gun. Da, 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 da. Here's how we monetize. Here's who we're talking to. Here's the content, because we got really specific. When we're too vague, if you guys are struggling with, what should I talk about? Who should I talk to? How do I get the right people to listen in? You're probably a little too vague. So Jake, let me take a break and let you, speak for a minute here. Let me pull off the trigger of the machine gun of ideas. So how's all this hitting you so far? Are we feeling better than 15 minutes ago?
Oh my gosh, I love it, and it's so weird to me because there's this fear, and I'm trying to place where it comes from that you were just talking on, and I feel like it's almost you don't want to narrow down because you think it's going to limit the amount of things you can do when focusing is actually the exact thing that's going to grow the things that you can do. It's a weird thing that we do, but I feel good about that because these numbers that you've given me, that 26 align very much with what I set out for a goal for myself at the beginning of the year. And then like guest wise, I just wasn't really sure who I should be talking to. So I kind of just had whoever on if I thought like, well, they seem to be doing something that they enjoy with their life. Let's bring them in.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be helpful in me getting more focused in the people I want to target and talk to.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. And each one of those guests that you have on, they, are great connections for collaboration down the road. Let's say you do host like a quarterly workshop, and you've got all these people that you now have connections with. Like you could literally go around and just be like, who do you know? And who's the best realtor in Atlanta? Who's crushing it in Chicago? And just talk about different markets and, how people are surviving and thriving in different markets. And then you pull these people in because they'll all have that one thing that they just blow your mind with. Like they take a ton of vacations. How are they doing that? Or they're making a ton of money off a certain type of real estate. How are they doing that? Because maybe it fits like your methodology really well. You have them come up and speak, and maybe they have a course, maybe they have a book, maybe they have coaching. And then guess what? When they come and speak on your platform for free, you're not paying these people, and they sell from your virtual stage or real life stage, you're getting a piece of that action, man. If they have a $2,000 course, they'll probably be kicking you a 50% commission off of every sale. And like, that's just another way to monetize. And then they probably have an online virtual summit or a in-person event too. They need speakers. Like, wow, I've been on Jake's show. He had me attend and teach at his workshop. They're going to do you a solid, and you have that connection now. They're probably going to have you back on. So or come on their podcast, speak on their stage. So I like all of the opportunities that could pop up from this niche. I know realtors are super like they're community driven people. It seems like it would be like cutthroat, like, you sold the house, that was my client or whatever, but it's not like that at all. From my experience, like people really are into sharing and collaborating. And I think that, I don't know, man, I think you could really, really do well pursuing this. So I think this is going to help a ton with your downloads overall. And it's going to be the right people. Like we don't want just people listening to listen. These are people that you can impact. And okay, this was an idea that I had when you were speaking a minute ago. Like sometimes that imposter syndrome creeps up and you're like, but what do I have to add to this space? Or like, who am I to be the real estate guy podcast?
Sure.
And for you, I would look at it through the lens of being the people's champion in the trenches, boots on the ground. Like that's how I am with podcasting business school. I'm not the famous podcasting guy. I'm not John Lee Dumas. I'm not Pat Flynn. I'm not like Lewis Howes or any of these like old school OG guys that bring millions of followers. I'm Adam from podcasting. I'm your buddy Adam from podcasting business school. I got on my pod pals. I'm the regular guy that people relate to, and they go, you know what? They've been listening for the last few years. They've seen my evolution from, part-time to full-time, now to thriving full-time. Like I want your listeners to go, if Jake can do this, I can do it too. Cause I relate to that guy. I don't relate to, multi-billion-dollar real estate mogul guy that's selling me infomercials or whatever. I relate to
Sure.
Jake, so that's kind of the pill we need to take to eradicate the imposter syndrome and just be like, I'm the real person. And it's going to be a slower build because I don't bring 1 million Instagram followers or whatever, but each person I can start small and I can develop real relationships with these people and develop super fans. All of a sudden you look back and you're like, wow, I've got 500 people listening every week. I got 1,000 people listening every week, and they're obsessed with my show because they see their journey and my journey. Does that make sense?
100%. And I love the thought. My head's spinning with people I want to talk to already that are like on my list that I could like put on there. So I'm excited about it. I want to start calling people like as soon as we get done here and seeing if I can set up interviews.
Yes. Okay. And I think that's great homework. I want you to let's start off with 226 item lists. The 26 successful real estate professionals that you feel like model the type of situations, lifestyle, and behavior that you want to talk about on your show. And then I would have a list of 26 solo topics that you can talk on. And then if we mix in some coaching or consulting style episodes, then that's just bonus. And, it just gives you even more buffer for all your content. But I with the 26 solos, I want you thinking like definitely 20 minutes or less. Probably a lot of my solo episodes are 15 to 10 minutes or less. So don't stress out about the time length. Just say what you need to say, and that's the perfect amount of time. And don't even worry about it. If it's 7 minutes, 17 minutes, whatever, take one tip, take one piece. Don't unpack your entire methodology in one whack. Break up each step, break up each phase or whatever, and talk about, all the things. So come up with 26 topics. And I think that you'll probably come up with like 50. Honestly, it won't be that hard. So I think that's going to be some good homework. And then also really look at your ideal listener journey, where I have the podcasting success timeline. I always tell people to start off with episode 220 on my show, because that's where I unpack that, where I would challenge you to like have this thriving real estate timeline or whatever it is with different phases, and go, okay, phase 1 is this, phase 2, phase 3 is that. Here are the symptoms of the first phase, the second, the third, and here's the checklist to go from this phase to that phase. So it's naming the phase. It's first naming the overall process, then naming each individual phase, have symptoms of each phase, and have a checklist to go to the next phase. You do that, you're going to stand out in a busy real estate coaching consulting market, especially when you're talking about actually enjoying yourself, not just making the money, but making the money and having the life, having both. And that is, I think that's going to help you stand out. Any questions on that specifically, on mapping that out?
You said it was episode 220 of your show that I should listen to. Okay.
Yes. And just like always, listen. It's like Bruce Lee, absorb what is useful and get rid of the rest. But yeah, I think anytime real estate, even though it seems like we're niching down from self-help, great big, to real estate, burnout and entrepreneurship, like I said, millions of potential listeners still. So that's a busy space. There are lots and lots of real estate podcasts, but like when you do something like map out the journey and you're talking to people and you can reference, like Jake you're in phase 2 of my timeline, the post-launch frustration zone. And when you listen to episode 220, you're going to go, bro, he's reading my mind. Like that. It will feel like that because I've been in exactly where you're at and you're figuring it out. Like the whole thing, like trying, I think one of the descriptors was like constantly trying to tweak things and figure out language. He's like exactly what we're talking about here today. This is the post-launch frustration zone. But getting to phase 3, the business traction zone, like that's the next phase, and it'll give you specific steps on how to get there. But I think that with the right name, the right branding, the right targeting, the right content, you're going to grow this thing. And then it just comes down to putting in reps. Go for 5 years and don't just keep your head down and go, I'm going to release an episode every week for the next 5 years. And then you come up for air and you're going to have a pretty damn good show and a great business around it. And that's my personal opinion. Does that sound good?
I love that. I love that.
Okay.
Awesome.
So before we close out, I've mentioned a couple of times, the real estate podcasting space can be really busy. I want you to follow with me. Like I would love for you to come up with like 3 or 4 show names, and we got to make sure it's right. Because, for example, I mentioned I'm in the market, and I'm trying to figure out, the crazy market. We're trying to move to St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm trying to find a podcast that just gives me updates on like the real estate market, like what is happening, when is this craziness going to be over, stuff like that. So I search in I go into Apple Podcasts, search real estate tips, and I get all these shows, and there's a lot of just randomness, real estate, blah, blah, blah. But there was one show called Real Estate Today. And I was like, okay, this doesn't sound like it's for real estate investors. It doesn't sound like it's for, general stuff. I'm like, this sounds like it could be what I'm looking for about like what is actually happening in the market today. So I listened to it. I downloaded one episode. I'm like, yep, this is what I need. Subscribe. So that's the experience I want your listeners to have, so they can cut through the clutter. Because you type in real estate, a whole bunch of stuff comes up. So we want real estate pros, real estate, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs to be looking at your show and realizing, yep, this is for me. Like when people see Podcasting Business School, that's a pretty strong fishing lure. It's not going to be for people that are interested in real estate investing or horses or something like that. Like it's very obvious, this is for you or this is not for you. Yeah. So this title is going to be important, man. So I want you to, follow back up with me. And in the notes I'm making for you, I'll just type in some keywords that I think would be helpful. And you just stick them in, it's like Legos, like rearrange them, put them back this way, go frontwards, backwards, middle ways. Let's see which, 2 to 4 word concoction makes the most sense. That's going to be the first step goal. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Yes. All right. So you're just getting started. Normally we do like the show shout out and all that stuff. We're not sure what the show will be named by the time this goes live, but it'll be like 8 weeks down the road. So we'll have some traction there. So that's good. But like social media, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to figure out what's going on, or website or whatever, where can people dive into your world, Jake?
Perfect. Easy way to get me is Jake Sudnick on Instagram. Right now, the show's title, Finding Self with Jake, so that'll probably change in the next little bit. So Jake Sudnick Instagram is the best way. Facebook, same thing.
All right. And it's SUDNICK. Go get him on the Instagram. All right. Well, I feel like we jam-packed this 30-minute episode here. Hopefully you all listening in had some great ideas along with Jake here. If you want to do a podcast audit, hopping over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school. Get signed up. I've got a long wait list to get in. So jump in while you can, get booked, grab your spot, and come on the show. Jake, I appreciate you being here, man. I hope that you're fired up and ready to rock.
Excited. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate you.
All right, pod pals. I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you next time.